Welcome everyone to this Friday afternoon TDL hosted Vireo4 Upgrade and Migration Training session. I'm your host today. I'm Courtney Muma. I'm the Deputy Director of Texas Digital Library. I also will have Frank Smutniak with me. He's our TDL lead Vireo developer to help out with your questions about upgrades and migrations and during the Q&A a little bit later on in the session. My apologies in advance that you'll have a lot of me today, but I am hoping that we'll have plenty of time for questions throughout, and also plenty of time for questions from you at the end. And also hoping that we're able to actually get out under 2 hours today. I know it's hard to commit to 2 hours on a Friday afternoon, so I really appreciate everyone making the effort to be here and join us today for this. So many of you have probably already gone through this before, but just for those who are new to Zoom, I want to make sure that at least while other people are speaking, unless you need to interrupt the speaker, if you can keep your microphone muted, that would be helpful. I still say no rules Friday. You can have your video on if you'd like to. Seeing faces makes me happy, but you don't have to. The presenters are also going to keep their mics muted and sometimes their video until it's their turn to present. If you want to see who is in attendance with you today, we've got 32 participants right now. You can click on that participants icon in the bottom center of the screen if you'd like to see who's here. And again, if you have a question or comment and you don't want to interrupt, go ahead and type it into chat. I might not be able to see it right away, but Leah DeForest from TDL is monitoring that chat for me. And so she'll interrupt me and let me know if there's a question that needs an answer right away, or it might be something we can wait till the end for. First thing I want to do is go over what our agenda is for today. I've actually linked to the agenda here at the bottom, and the link is also available in the group chat. I will share these slides afterwards with everyone. So we're doing the review of the agenda right now. We're going to go through talking about the upgrade and migration process. Again, interrupt me at any point when we're talking about that if you have questions or need more detail. We'll talk about the changes between Vireo 3 and 4. We'll start with about 19-20 minute video that Billy Peterson-Lugo from Baylor did for us in our Vireo user group meeting. And after we watch that, we'll discuss it a bit, and then we'll show you some specifics about how to get started in Vireo4 as a brand new instance of Vireo, which is something that might be new to you. Then we're going to review the changes and share some tips at the end before we have our closing Q&A. So that's your overview for today. That link that I shared with you there, I just want to stop sharing for 1 sec and show you in Chrome. That link is to this agenda. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this agenda also includes the main resources that are that contain everything that we're discussing today. So everything we discuss today is accessible in any of these resource links, and I highly recommend bookmarking them for use later while you're going through the upgrade and migration to your new system. And I'm going to jump back to PowerPoint. Alrighty, so let's begin by talking a little bit about our respective roles in the Vireo service. Some of you joining us today may have been using Vireo in the same way for a very long time. So this could be your first experience with an upgrade and migration. Others have been here since the beginning of Vireo, way back in the mid-2000s. And many of you have had little, if any, engagement with the process that got us to Vireo4. So welcome. So the role of TDL in all of this as your service provider is that we are the home of the open source Vireo project since its beginnings in 2008. TDL's developer, Frank Smutniak, who's with us today, leads Vireo development, which is guided as well by the Vireo steering committee and user group. Like all of TDL's services, Vireo is open source software, and TDL maintains the software on behalf of our membership. Texas A&M, Texas State, Baylor, and Texas Tech developers have been essential in maintaining and advancing that Vireo code over the years as well. We're very grateful to them. We are the host as well as the maintainer of 14 TDL member instances of Vireo. And many of you are represented here today, hopefully all of you. So thank you again for coming. TDL is also the project manager for the Vireo4 migrations and upgrades. And so that's why we're hosting this today, to help you understand what all of that will entail in the coming months and what we've started so far. And you, as the TDL member, are the local Vireo administrator and facilitator of submissions at your own institution. You report bugs to us at TDL and any problems that you might be having with your Vireo instance to that support@tdl.org help desk. You are a member automatically of the Vireo Open Source Community User Group, or the VUG as we lovingly refer to it. And you are also eligible for VUG Steering Committee membership. You're also hopefully a contributor of feature requests, so those things that you really want to see in Vireo in the future. So let's get into the meat of the upgrade and migration. We've established a little background. I'm going to start with this handy set of resources. Again, I referred to these in the agenda that is shared in the chat for you on our Confluence wiki for Vireo. So you'll find all these links there. Again, I really do recommend using them when you're going through your upgrade and migration, and maybe even bookmarking them for future use and reference. So they are a Vireo4 upgrade and migration set of FAQs. So these are actual questions that have come to me, which I'll be reviewing today, about the process of the Vireo4 upgrade and migration. And hopefully these questions that your colleagues at other institutions have asked will be helpful in your understanding as well. And so again, I'm going to review those today as a way to discuss how the upgrades and migrations will go. But you can also refer to them later and get that information on the wiki. There's also the Vireo4 user documentation, which is brand new, and with great thanks to the Vireo user group steering committee who helped us put together that brand new user documentation in the last couple of years. Christy Park, director of TDL, and I sat down last week, I think, but time has no meaning these days. And we wrote out the differences between Vireo 3 and 4 in terms of the user interface as a handy guide for y'all when you actually start using Vireo 4, because you've been so used to using prior versions and there are things that have moved. So this is kind of a crosswalk that's going to help you see, oh, this used to be here, where is it now? And then you can easily refer and figure out where it went in your interface. And then just for those of you who are interested in the history of Vireo and the versions over time up to Vireo 4, I also included a link to some historical information on the Confluence page, just if you're interested in finding out how Vireo came to be what it is now. So let's talk timeline. So TDL is upgrading and migrating content to Vireo 4 for all of its TDL service members starting in May of 2020, and we're going through September of 2020. Our goal is to be finished by the end of September 2020. We've contacted all of our staff contacts that we are aware of at our partner institutions to find the best and worst timing for y'all according to your schedule of getting submissions at the various levels. And we're keeping track of that as we try to make sure we find times to work together that are the least disruptive to your schedules. Several of you who were part of the pilots and or who elected for earlier migrations in May or June know that we have been delayed by about 2 months due to complications from both the pandemic and also shibboleth. TDL is grateful for your patience through these times that we're living in and the setbacks that we're experiencing right now. And Frank can share some more information about that during the Q&A later about his work with Shibboleth and how that's going. So we're going to get into some of the specifics now about the upgrades and migration process itself. You can find that documentation on the Vireo4 Upgrade and Migration FAQs. So the first thing many of you have wondered is, once we begin, how long will the upgrade and migration take? So Frank, our developer, estimates a week at the most to move into the new Vireo4, though we suspect that the earliest migrations, and we were correct in suspecting this, are going to take longer as we adjust to the process of migration and upgrade and fix bugs that we find as we go. We'll move a lot more rapidly once we ramp up throughout the summer. And just a reminder that will take as much time as you need as well to adjust your settings and configuration. And TDL will not eliminate your old Vireo instance until you are absolutely ready to say go. Some of you have also asked if there would be any downtime between the move from the current production version that you're already using and your Vireo4 production. So the short answer here is no. The longer answer is that TDL is going to install a fresh new Vireo4 instance on which you can adjust the settings and configuration to your liking and your needs at your institution. Your current production Vireo instance won't be touched at all until you're ready to pinpoint a time when we can migrate the content that it has in it already into the new production instance of Vireo4. And then from that point forward, after that migration, we'll leave up your current original instance for a month or more if needed, just in case. But the Vireo4 instance will then be your production system. So even when we move over, you can still keep your old one up if you need to refer to it, if there's anything in it that you need to check before we take it down. So you will have the say in when we finally do take that down. So the migration and configuration could take longer than a 2-week time frame, which is what we had defined when we were scheduling with all of y'all, just so that we could get some idea of a schedule of all 14 of these hosted Vireo member instances before the end of September, allowing some wiggle room between the installations, which we found we needed. So if your installation isn't configured and migrated to your satisfaction at the end of that 2 weeks from when we began, you'll still be able to continue, like I said, using your current Vireo. At that point, we'll probably schedule another week in the future, though, with your staff, making sure that your staff has an opportunity to work with us to finish up the migration work. And so if you've given us a 2-week frame to work within and we're not able to finish during that, don't worry, we will work with you to find another time frame. Even if it's a month or two later and we have to come back to you, that's absolutely fine. We're here to work with you through this. Another question that's related to this is whether your institution's IT staff is going to need to work with TDL, and the answer to that is yes, indeed, they will, at least to the extent that they need to work with TDL to set up Shibboleth with us, and we're finding that that's a lot of back and forth right now. And then also, if there are any other necessary positions or security needs, we'll need someone in your IT staff to work with us on that. So your library and your grad school staff will also have some responsibilities during the transition. Vireo4 has new features and changes that are going to require local setup and configuration. We'll go into those a little bit more later. The Vireo4 documentation that's linked from the agenda will help you prepare for some of those changes. Your staff will also need to update any of your local guidance and procedural documentation that you have for your students or your grad school or anyone else where you provide local information and documentation. And we'll help out with that. We'll engage with your staff throughout the process to make sure that everything is set up and working as you expect it to be. So we will be coordinating all of our hosted software activities on your behalf. So when your Vireo4 instance is set up how you'd like it, and all of your content has been moved over from your current instance to your satisfaction, it is our developer who will help make sure your automated deposit into the repository is set up to your specifications. So if you've already have something considered and pre-configured and you need it set up the same way, we're going to make sure to help out with that on your behalf. A few folks have actually reached out to us, and we're excited about this, to ask if they can test and fiddle around with Vireo4 in advance of your upgrade and migration. Yes, the Vireo community always needs more folks who are willing to test and provide feedback to help us improve the system for future releases and also to help us find bugs. I'll share more information about how to participate actively in the Vireo user group and larger community at the end of today's training. I've got lots of helpful links for y'all. We do ask that any testing be done on the sandbox and never on a production installation. In order to use it, just use the help desk, again, support@tdl.org, and make your request so that we can track it and have an idea who's working in there. Sometimes we wipe our test sandbox, and so if you're using it for some local experimentation, we don't want to accidentally go in there and wipe everything while you're trying to figure things out in there. We still might need to do that sometimes, but we'd rather not disrupt you if we can avoid it. When the upgrade is working well and it's configured to your liking, the things that are actually migrated are the action log, the submissions that are still in there, and the users. And those are all migrated into the new system. If Frank has migrated some content into Vireo4 from your current Vireo already, he's got a plan to make sure that he doesn't overwrite anything or duplicate anything when he moves the rest of content that was generated from the first migration. So no worries, he's got that handled. And we'll also be asking you to check for us, of course. One more reminder, everything I've reviewed is available on the TDL Confluence Wiki, and I'm going to keep adding to it. So for instance, if y'all have questions today, I'll probably add those to the frequently asked questions about Vireo4 migration. If you have other questions that are better suited or feature ideas that are better suited for the user group, I'll also forward those on to the user group in the steering committee. And to the product owner, Chris Starcher, who's actually here with us today as well. So I want to pause for questions now before we jump into our discussion of the changes between Vireo 3 and 4 that's going to include a wonderful video by Billy. So are there any questions yet in the chat, or would anyone like to unmute their mics and ask a question?
This is not a question, but I have, Mrs. Sandra Harmon is joining the meeting, so just keep an eye out to let her in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I've got Leah DeForest, our communications manager at TDL, watching for folks who want to join. So thanks for giving us a heads up.
This is Billy.
Hey, Billy.
She's having trouble getting in, and I'm not sure what that is. I mean, she says the link won't work, but I'm not sure what she's doing. So I'm trying to communicate with her to get some clarification.
Billy, what we're finding, the biggest struggle people are having is forgetting to make sure that they have either a free or paid Zoom account. And
everybody at Baylor has a Zoom account because Baylor has an enterprise. So that should not be the issue.
Okay.
But with Sandra, it's hard to tell.
Okay.
Just real quick, Billy, this is Leah at TDL. We've also had trouble, the email address that is used is not the email address that you know and use every day. It's our EID. I don't know if Baylor has something similar set up, but she might need to try that.
I'm here.
Okay.
Hey.
It says Lucy because she sent me the link, but I'm here.
Glad you can make it.
I'm sorry. I don't know what I was doing wrong. I do Zoom every week, so.
It's, you know, I was hosting a meeting about 2 weeks ago and I couldn't get into it. So well, absolutely no worries.
We do this for Sunday school on Sunday. I did have trouble. So I don't know what my problem is here.
We're recording as well, so you'll be able to watch everything that you missed in the beginning if you missed anything.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from folks before we dive into the next section? We're moving right along today. Okie doke. I'm going to go ahead and move us into our short video presentation. I'm really excited to share this video that Billy made for us. It's meta inception because her video was recorded at the Vireo user group meeting, and her recording and slides were based on another presentation from Texas State's Stephanie Larison that she also recorded elsewhere and had different slides for. So this is the Super Inception meta video that we're about to share with you. It's about 20 minutes and we'll have some time to chat after we share that today. All right, Leah, I'm handing over for you to share.
Okay, sounds good. I think this is it. One moment, please. Oh, it's not coming up, Courtney, so just give me 1 second. I'll make it full screen once I'm back in. Are you able to see the What's New in Vireo4 video now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and make it full screen and hit play.
Excellent. Thank you.
Always good when technology works on the first go around. Well, thank you everybody for attending today, and also many thanks to Stephanie Larison for this presentation because she gave me these slides. I made some modifications, but my modifications were very minor. This is primarily her slide deck and me just giving my perspective. So going forward with that, what I'm really going to focus on today are what I view as the changes in Vireo4 from Vireo3. And there are actually some pretty significant changes, especially the very first one, or the first two that are listed there. And I will go into detail, a little bit more detail about each of those, but not like digging down into the weeds kind of detail. The most significant change has been with this concept of organizations and categories, and the bulk of this presentation may actually focus on this because of this was a significant catalyst that resulted in the difference, the main difference between Vireo3 and Vireo4. Up until now, only one submission workflow could be established in Vireo. Historically, that one workflow was established for the graduate school and library personnel to effectively manage the submission of electronic theses and dissertations. So even if a graduate school handled dissertations differently than master's theses, they still had to go through that same workflow. They still had to use that same submission form. It was all identical. So with Vireo4, institutions can continue to work that way. If you just need a single workflow, that's what works for you. You don't want anything more than that, then that's great. You can continue to use Vireo4 in that way. However, for those with the need, you can set up multiple workflows within Vireo at this time, once you've implemented Vireo4. This is done by creating organizations, and organizations are a workflow, and a workflow is basically the submission form. At the very top level, you have the institution. This is presets. So in my case, the institution would be Baylor University. And at the institution level, you never accept submissions. It is simply, you may make some edits initially, but once you've done those initial edits, you don't make any changes. These next few slides provide a preview of the setup associated with the institution. This same setup also exists for each sub-organization or sub-entity that you create. So this will be a familiar look and feel. These three tabs: application, workflow management, and organization. At this point, we're looking at the organization for the institution, and we're going to manage the workflow. And one of the things to recognize about managing the workflow is that you can set default settings at this level. And so these default settings will carry down through all of the other entities that you create. So you want to think about this carefully, because there may be some things that you don't want to carry all the way through. You absolutely know you're never going to use those any place at all, and so you eliminate them from this very top level workflow. But there may be ones that you absolutely want carried through. You want an author, you want a title of the work, for example. So there's some thought that needs to go into what you're going to set up at the default level, at the top level. And another way of looking at this is that the institution is the parent, and then below the parent you get children, but even the children can be parents because there may be children under those. So it's a very hierarchical structure. Once again, as I said previously, the organization never accepts, or the institution never accepts submissions. So that's all, should always be set to no. Vireo4 enables the creation of new organizations, and note whatever is created here will be added to the institution, which means it will be hierarchically at a level below the institution. And creating a new organization is akin to creating a new workflow or a new submission form that is tailored to that particular entity. These are default labels for those organizations. So you can have colleges, you can have degrees, departments, programs, majors, and administrative group system settings. But you can also add, if what you need to do isn't appropriately identified within these particular labels, you can also add a label that better fits your needs. So the question is, looking at your institution, what's going to work for you? And next I'll provide some examples of ways that you can think about this. So in this case, so you can tell this is from Stephanie's slides, because Texas State is the institution. And in their case, what they've established is they have two, they don't have anybody else, at least in this representation. Only the theses and dissertations are being submitted to Vireo, but dissertations and master's theses may actually have different workflows. And so under Texas State, they have set dissertations and master's theses as two separate workflows, two separate organizations that are under that parent organization. And whatever the default settings are at the Texas State University level, currently those are carried through to that next level. This is just an example of what that looks like. You just create your organization and you give it a name, and then you add it to the institution. This is another example where there may actually be a college that also at Texas State perhaps, and that college has a slightly different way of doing submissions, and maybe they only do master's theses and they don't have dissertations at all. So a college of health has been added to the institution, and then within that college a degree has been added for master's. And in each of these areas, a decision can be made whether submissions are going to be accepted. My guess is the submissions are only accepted at the master's level. From a user's perspective, when the student goes and logs into Vireo to start his or her submission, they're going to see a screen that looks something like this, and they're going to be asked to choose the college that's appropriate for them. So hopefully they choose the appropriate one. Let's say in this case, Arts and Sciences. And notice also it tells you that Arts and Sciences has 2 options available to it, and that the College of Health only has 1. And then at the next point, and this is a additional slide that shows you the flow of what's happening here. So College of Arts and Sciences has doctoral and master's theses. College of Health Professions has just master's theses. So you choose doctoral level, College of Arts and Sciences, 2 options. Now I'm going to choose the doctoral level. And now it's saying, now I'm ready to start my doctoral submission, and I will be using the workflow that is specific for that particular submission. One of the things about Vireo4 is that all of these entities that submit to Vireo4, everybody will see everybody else's submissions, which you might be saying, that's a lot of stuff to wade through. In reality, you can set up a filter. So in this case, they've set up a filter that says, I'm only interested in seeing the submissions for College of Arts and Sciences. And so those are the only submissions that you'll see. So you don't have to wade through everybody else's submissions. You can just focus, you can just filter by the submissions that are appropriate for your use. So creating an organization, setting up these workflows, the submission forms, the options are endless, as this slide says. You do need to plan carefully. And I can provide another scenario, something that Baylor University is looking at. Ideally, what we would like to do is to create colleges for Arts and Sciences, the Graduate School, the Honors College, and Truett Seminary. So we would have 4 colleges. And then within Arts and Sciences, we want to create a department for museum studies, because there are non-thesis based works that also fulfill the degree in that department, and they currently don't go through the graduate school, but now we can push them through Vireo. Additionally, the graduate school will continue with its current submission workflow. We don't anticipate any changes in that, but undergraduate honors theses will be submitted to the Honors College, and works for completing the MDiv degree will be submitted to Truett Seminary. And as we work through these different scenarios, we'll need to think about and plan how this is all going to play out, even though initially we will focus on getting the graduate school up and running. Not too far into the future, we'll look at adding these other entities into Vireo so that they can also submit this way. So the other piece of this is customizing the workflows, and this is the part that really makes it unique for that particular entity, that they can set up the workflows exactly in a way, or the submission form in a way that works best for them. The default settings sit at the institution level, and you'll know, don't delete anything, because you don't want to lose those things, because somebody may actually need to use it further on down the road. You probably don't want to make changes after things have already been set in place and people have started using things, so you need to map things out and be sure where you're at before people start submitting. Repeating again, never accept submissions at the institution level. So here we have a university. Submissions are not allowed at the university level. We have a degree level of graduate. Here we've got the university, the graduate school. Submissions are not allowed at the graduate school level. So when you get down to the submission type of dissertation or master's theses, now submissions are allowed. Let's say in the graduate program, you don't need that program option in the workflow, so you want to remove it. And that applies to both dissertations and master's theses workflow. So it came down from the university, graduate school doesn't need it, or the graduate degree doesn't need it, so they remove it. That removal carries through to the next level down, the dissertations and the master's theses. And there's an example. It's been removed from the graduate workflow. Now, let's say further, and here you can see it's been removed from both of those, but additionally, master's theses don't need to send their theses to ProQuest. So that's going to be removed from the master's thesis workflow. So now you see there's a slight difference between what happens in dissertations and what happens in the master's thesis. Moving along, let's say we add in an undergraduate program. And in the undergraduate program, we've established the honors thesis submission type. And you'll notice that whatever the default is in the university level, it's been carried through to the undergraduate degree level, which has also been carried through to the honors thesis. So here you see multiple workflows have been set up for dissertations and master's theses that are going through the graduate program or the graduate degree. And you see honors thesis, basically no changes from the top level going through the undergraduate degree. This more or less completes a very quick overview of how the multiple workflows can be established in Vireo4. The next set of stages, although important, are not as complex as this particular change, and so they're a little less time spent on them. It's more of a sort of a show and tell of what's available that is not currently available in version 3. And starting with the enhanced field control for filtering, flagging, and tracking. Within the workflow, Vireo4 provides more options for filtering, flagging, and tracking. This is a sample. With every field, you will see a screen that looks like this. Some of these are familiar if you've used Vireo 3, the idea of something being required, something being disabled. Those are familiar concepts, but there's some things here that are new. The ability to flag something, the ability to log any field that you want. By logging means what if someone does something with that particular field, then that change is captured in the log. I'll start with the flagged field. Basically a flagged field allows you to establish a filter that will display all the time. So in this case, they're flagging the institutional ID, and that means it will always appear as a filter that can be used. And this is an example of a log field. In this particular case, they're saying, yes, I would like to have this log. So every time somebody makes a change in the first name, this might not be a field that you really want to log, but if you did, it would be recorded in the log every time that the field was changed and who made that change. This is filtering and sorting, and this can be done on any field. So this is more closely tied to your Vireo login. If there's certain things that you always want to display over in the filter area on Vireo, then you can move them back and forth between the displayed columns and the disabled columns, and you can also order how they display, so that when you log into Vireo, then you will see those items available for you to use as filters. So the difference between this and flagged is flagged will always display for everybody. This is more of a choice of what you would like to display for yourself. Moving on to metadata. The metadata in Vireo is based on the most current version of the Texas Digital Library Descriptive Metadata Guidelines for electronic theses and dissertations. Note, you do not want to edit the metadata key, so that needs to remain as it displays. You can alter or revise information that displays under the help. You can also change the label. So if you don't want the label to be major, but you want it to say major field of study or specialization, whatever you want that label to be, you can change that, but it will always be associated with that specific metadata key. And somewhat related to metadata is control vocabularies. Vireo4 makes use of control vocabularies across almost all the fields. And this is where you can find the control vocabulary management, and you can select any one of those, particularly the ones that have the little people icon. The ones with the globe icon, that's addressed in a slightly different area. You can also create new controlled vocabulary. And you have the ability to, you could start with the controlled vocabulary that's provided, and if there is some provided, you could export it, you could modify that CSV file, and then you could upload it. Or if you're starting from scratch, you can create your CSV file that contains that controlled vocabulary, and then upload it, associating it with the particular field that that controlled vocabulary is associated with, connected to. And so that is a very
Thank you again to Billy for creating that, and to Stephanie for building that content for us. I find it really helpful to be able to share that with y'all here today. And I also shared with you in chat links to both TDL's YouTube channel and our DSpace repository for TDL, where you can find that entire video from the Vireo user group meeting that includes that content I just shared, but also the much larger meeting where we discussed all kinds of other stuff about the community and Vireo4 changes, and answered quite a lot of questions that y'all might find useful. So feel free to use those resources that they are available to you. Are there any questions about all that great information that Billy just shared with us through the video before I move on to the next thing? My apologies for my very busy phone today. I've tried to mute it, but I'm failing. Okay, since I'm not seeing any questions, I'm going to jump to the next thing I wanted to show you real quick. This is linked in the slides, which again I'll share with everybody who attended today. But I wanted to show you this handy page that Christy Park, Director of TDL, and I created, oh wow, July 2nd, so not last week. Basically what we did here is we went through and pointed out and kind of created a map for you for the user interface changes between Vireo3 and Vireo4. So what I'm hoping is that you'll find this useful when you're in Vireo3 and you're in some settings and you're used to seeing content in those settings that have suddenly moved to a different tab. You'll easily be able to cross-reference here and figure out where that moved. So in almost all cases, content has moved or been renamed, so nothing is going to be missing. It's just moved around, and so this will help you figure out where everything went and where you can find it in the new Vireo4. So this is also linked in the agenda for today. I just wanted to show it to you really quickly as a good reference. Also, another really handy thing I think for you to bookmark if you think that you'll find that useful and you think that you might actually be using it later. So just so you know, that exists, and we hope that it's useful to you. We actually created it initially because we've got a wonderful staff member of UT Libraries who is actually creating new videos for us, a series of new videos to replace some of the older videos we had for Vireo that are basic instructional videos about the system. And it's really helpful for her since she's new to Vireo entirely. And so it's helping her figure out changes in those old scripts that we had to the new ones. So I hope you find that useful too. Alrighty. So another resource that's specifically for y'all TDL members who are going to see your new Vireo4s getting set up over the summer and into the fall is this Getting Started in Vireo4 page that we created. I'm going to have John Crosno from UT Southwest Medical, who is also one of our Vireo user group steering committee members, kind of walk you through some of the most essential parts of this Getting Started documentation. It's a real short page in the wiki, but it specifically walks you through the process that I've described today about upgrade and migration. So what the process is overall, what you can expect. It talks about the system and account setup. It goes through the institutional settings in the application, which again, it's going to be really new to a lot of you who have been just using the same Vireo for a long time and haven't experienced a move into a new system. And then it'll talk a little bit about migration and post-migration information that's going to be useful. But I'm going to ask John to share a little bit of his experience. So John was one of the pilot instances that we're still working to get up into production at UT Southwest Medical. John has been in the new version and giving us lots of great feedback. So John, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and hand it over to you to walk through what you would like to highlight from the Getting Started content.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can get the slide up. And all right, so as Courtney already mentioned, there is a multi-stage process that will be involved. But one of the first things to do is the system and account setup. TDL will establish the server for your institution, and they'll let you know when it's ready. And then you'll receive an email notification about that and asking you to create an account to administer the site for the entire institution. And this typically will just be a regular account. When you're creating an account, it just starts out as a regular one. So it could be, when you create the account, it could be a shibboleth account, or an email password account, depending on how your system is set up. Once the account is established, is created, you need to reply back to your TDL support person to identify the account. The developer then will provide administrator privileges to the account. And then once you're able to get in, it's just a simple process of logging in. Get that logged in real quick. I'm demoing our local Vireo4 institution at UT Southwestern Medical Center. And then once you have admin privileges, you just go into the settings. When it comes up, you'll see the application settings show up. This is where you can establish various organization aspects. You can establish what the submissions, and the look and feel. The most important thing that you need to do, though, is to establish the organization. And when you first get your Vireo4 system set up, it will say institution here. And it's just a process of coming down to the manage organization section. And this is where you will change to reflect your institution name. And then it reflects here. And then once you do that, then you're able to go through, and as was described in the video, in Billy's video, it's like, then you can make your workflow changes, make your adjustments, do whatever you need to do to set up various parts of the settings. And I don't think there's anything else that I need to say, Courtney, is there? You're muted, Courtney.
That was the most important part.
Okay.
Thank you so much, John. So does anybody have any questions about that little piece? Again, a lot of you might not have any experience with setting up from the very beginning. And so we wanted to make sure to highlight that for you and also provide a resource that you could use to refer to that explained how to go through it. But you're also not alone. So when it comes time to do this, you can ask us all the questions you need to get it started, and we'll be there to help you from TDL.
Courtney, I have a question.
Yes.
So that initial email, and you mentioned it can be shibboleth or it can just be something not shibboleth. If we're going to implement shibboleth, should it be shibboleth, and should that be our shibboleth contact at Baylor?
Yes, I'm really glad you pointed that out. So especially when we were going through the testing phases, we weren't bothering with shibboleth. Frank can talk about whether that was a mistake or not, because we've been challenged by shibboleth in the last month or so. But we want, if an institution is going to be using shibboleth as their as the way to monitor access, to manage access into their system, then we want to start with that, with our new Vireo4 setup, for sure.
Well, they're already aware, but I'll make them more aware that they would be the one to be the first person of contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for giving a heads up, especially, and this, I'll tell this to Billy, but it's also useful for everyone else here. We know that some of the folks who are our local contacts at your institution for shibboleth can change over time. And so it may be that we have an older contact. So we will be relying on you as an institution to make sure we have the right person to work with on the shibboleth setup. Thank you so much for that question, Billy. Are there any other questions on what we've covered so far? Because next I'm just going to jump into a review before we just open the floor to all the Q&A. So is there anything that anyone would like to ask right now? Okie doke. I don't see anything, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to our next, just to review. Okay, so this is the big review of the changes, the biggest changes in Vireo4, and then some tips as well, one big one. So as you saw in the video, and as we've talked about, there are new customizable, highly customizable workflows. And we know a lot of you are excited about that, and we're excited about that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how you all use those. We've also got that enhanced field control for filtering, flagging, and tracking, where you can change the help menu, you can change the labels, but not the metadata keys. So lots of configuration that you can do. And this is the stuff that you'll be doing when we set up your Vireo4 instance as you get it ready for the migration. You've also got those controlled vocabularies across most fields, and you can upload your own controlled vocabularies and then associate those with the appropriate fields. One big tip that Christy Park asked me to make sure that I communicated with y'all is never change the shibboleth settings. So as an admin of your own Vireo instance, you might see that you actually could change those shibboleth settings. Please do not. It will mess a lot of things up. So just a tip there, we'll make sure that we've got that highlighted a few places in the documentation as well, but please don't change those settings. And just another reminder that handy mapping of user interface differences, especially for those of you who are accustomed to using Vireo3, we think you're going to find that mapping from 3 to 4 user interface changes really helpful. So good idea to bookmark that as along with the new documentation that we've provided. And you'll see some videos coming out in the next couple of months as well. We've got scripts being created right now, and we'll actually start creating those videos this summer with help from UT Libraries. So that's all I have for you today, other than some community sharing that I'll do after this Q&A. We do have, again, we have some folks from the steering committee here today. We have Frank Smutniak, who is the lead developer, here to answer your questions. So again, feel free to unmute your mics, or you can leave something in the chat if you have a question, and let's get those answered. Frank, do you want to say hi while you're here so people can see you? Some of these folks haven't met you before.
Hello. I'm
Frank's
in
got
my
the Northern
basement.
Lights. Oh
I'm in
my
my
gosh.
basement because that's the coolest part of the house right now. So
Understandable.
the only way I can get good air conditioning upstairs is to freeze everyone else out on the first floor. So
Gotcha. I like the Northern Lights background, Frank.
thanks.
Hey, Leah, any questions from anybody? Again, feel free to unmute. We might finish early today, really early. I anticipated a lot more questions from y'all, but it is Friday afternoon. Okay, Holly, thank you. Okay, Susan first, actually. Susan is asking, Frank, can we have more than one admin per institution?
Yes. Yeah. It's just a setting. Anyone can be given the admin permissions.
And from Holly, Holly has a question about graduation semester. Holly, do you want to unmute and ask, or do you want to type it?
I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. I had a question about graduation semester, because currently at UT, we, it's set up that we filter by like May 2020, August 2020. But when I was watching Billy's video, it looked like more like a calendar. Like, do we have to set up a specific date in Vireo 4 for graduation semester? Because I don't know if we've had to do that before.
I can't answer that, but Frank might be able to, or Billy, if you can address it.
Or I can.
Or John. Thanks.
Because
Thank you, John.
I still have this, I'm still logged in, but it is based on it is a sort of a calendar setting. So I can share my screen, Courtney, if that's all right.
Yes, please. I have stopped sharing so John can show and tell.
So yes, so this is the list view, and it does function kind of on a calendar, but it still uses the month.
Okay.
So I mean, this does allow you to you can filter, and you can filter by month, you can add months and years as you need, like you can in Vireo 3.
But if so say we take submissions from June until a date in August, if I filter by 1 month at a time, is it only gonna pull up those submissions by that particular month? Or will it pull it up if can we set up a range in there? I guess.
I think basically it's like the works with Vireo 3. You can keep adding the months to the filter.
I see. Okay.
And it should still apply to everything.
Okay, so it's really not like a huge change with graduation semester or anything like that.
Correct.
It should work the same as it did in Vireo 3.
Yes, it just looks a little different.
Looks different. Okay, perfect.
That was a really helpful question, Holly, because that's something we neglected to add to the changes from 3 to 4 interface. And so that's something that I'll add to that page, so we have that as an easy reference. So
okay.
I appreciate that question. Thank
you. Thank you.
We have a question from Jill. Once a workflow has been created and the submission has been received, the workflow cannot be modified. However, she wonders if they can still add new workflows in the future as institutional needs change. And as far as I know, the answer to that is yes. You can still add new workflows. Frank, do you want to clarify?
I mean, that's something I haven't explicitly tested because I'm looking at it from a different aspect rather than a user, but that's the intent. It should work that way because the idea is that once you've submitted data, a submission, for example. Obviously, to change that workflow, you'd have to map that data onto a new workflow. But creating new workflows once other submissions have happened, that should not be a problem at all. It should always work that way, because you will always have changes in the way you do things and be adding departments and whatnot.
Yeah, and we haven't seen anything in the testing that contradicted that yet. So, but it is one of those things that I think it's important to kind of bookmark in terms of something you want to make sure is working for you when we do the migration. Let's see, other questions? Thanks for those questions, y'all. Much appreciated. Ooh, great. We have a long one from Adrian. And I'm reading these as well, just for the recording. So Adrian's question might be confusing. Thanks for the warning. So their current video is only used to move theses and dissertations from the graduate school to their repository. They're hoping to create a separate submission space for doctoral projects and professional papers that will completely bypass the graduate school and go only to the libraries. Does anybody want to address that question? Or do you want to explain it more, Adrian? You're welcome to unmute your mic.
Well, I don't know how to, thank you for reading it. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it better. We were just hoping that instead of bothering the graduate school with these other projects, we would like to have use Vireo as the submission space for. If we could just have an entirely separate process set up through Vireo to come to the libraries, but the graduate school won't have to deal with that at all. Does that make sense at all?
It sounds like that you would be able to set it up that way, but I'll let Frank confirm.
Well, to me, it sounds like just an additional workflow, or
Yeah.
You create a different sub-institution.
Okay, I was hoping.
Well, Adrian, this is Billy. I have a clarification. So the workflow, the first one you described, the theses and dissertations go to the repository from Vireo. Are these items going to the libraries also going to go to the repository?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that was the case.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. I didn't want to confuse our graduate school with trying to sort out what ought to go to their, their graduate reader and all the processes that they have set up. And I thought that the new workflows y'all were describing might do it, but I wanted to be absolutely sure before I tell some people that we can definitely do it.
And this might be something too, when we get you set up, I'm not looking at my calendar right now, but when Frank gets you set up with your instance, you'll have some time to poke around and make sure you can set it up like you want it and get help from us. But you can also use the sandbox up till then if you want to do some experimentation.
Okay, excellent. I will. Thank you.
And I also think that, yes, it would take a separate workflow. Those people submitting the projects would need to know to select the correct submission. The graduate school and the libraries, you would potentially see all the submissions in Vireo, and you would filter on the ones that you care about. So the graduate school would filter on the ones that went in through the graduate workflow so that they wouldn't see the rest, if I understand correctly, and vice versa. You would filter on the ones that you're interested in so that you don't see all the other submissions.
Okay, definitely. And I kind of worried that, I just worried that students might end up submitting to the wrong spot. And I wondered if I was hoping there'd be a way to avoid that entirely, but that's the way it goes and could happen. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. We have a question from Misu about the ProQuest field, that it seems to be new or extended in Vireo4. From my understanding, the ProQuest functionality has remained the same. We've just moved where it is in the interface.
We don't use ProQuest, so I can't. But I thought Stephanie said something about ProQuest related to their Vireo4.
Yeah, there was an issue. We haven't published the new documentation for that yet because she had an issue during testing that she could not replicate. So that means that we think it's fixed, but Frank is looking into it to make sure it's still working. But the ProQuest, it's just a sending to ProQuest instead of DSpace basically, and it's all the same. It's just moved around. So you'll see where we've moved it in the page that describes the move from 3 to 4. Yeah, there is. So Misu is asking about sending directly from Vireo4 to ProQuest, and it does work that way, but so do prior Vireo versions. Any other questions for folks? This is a great discussion so far. I'm finding some really great stuff that I can add to the documentation to make it easier for folks. So keep asking, keep putting questions in the chat if you want to. What I'm showing on the screen right now is how to contribute. So you all know you're part of the Vireo user group automatically. Hopefully all of you are on the Vireo user group discussion list. If you're not, please do join and I can help you do that. You're also on specifically a Vireo TDL contact list, so just for our hosted Vireo instances. So that's where you'll see emails from me that are specific to the service that TDL hosts for you. Oh, great, we have another question from Holly. Holly, you want to talk again?
No, and I hope this doesn't sound too elementary, but we went through a migration like once several years ago, but I honestly don't remember.
It's been a while.
So yeah, I guess I was just curious. The way we have our settings in Vireo 3 currently, will those automatically migrate to 4, or are we having to set up settings from scratch again?
I'll let Frank talk you through that one.
Yes, things like look and feel, logos and stuff, you will need to go ahead and set that up again yourself. The institution, I do a simple a direct mapping from the Vireo 3 institution, but it's not hierarchical, into a mapping in Vireo 4. If you want to make use of some of this hierarchy, then you have to go ahead and massage that organizational hierarchy yourself, and then I will take that and then I will continue the migration so that submissions get mapped to the right department, program, etc. But again, yeah, some of the things, look and feel. John Crossnow went through a setup like that where he set up the look and feel of his institution, and so he might have more comment on that.
So, and I think from a lot of things transfer over. Some you may need to go through your Vireo 3 settings, and I mean some of the email text may not. I mean if you've changed any of the automatic email settings, you may have to go through and copy those emails and to be able to put them into Vireo 4. But a lot of things do transfer over, but and that's one of the reasons why you'll have Vireo 3 and Vireo 4 running at the same time during these initial migration processes, so that you can go see in Vireo 4, and if you're missing something there, you can then go to Vireo 3 and grab it and move it over.
Gotcha.
And again, this migration, we've used it for 3 pilot projects. But then as we go through all the 14 institutions, we're going to find things that, we just didn't think about, that there's bugs, there's probably going to be, obviously Vireo has been around a lot longer and the migration code has just been, in use for a few months. So we're going to find bugs in that too. I just, we don't know where they'll show up, but for the most part, the submissions seem to be getting through fine. The users getting through fine, but there just may be some look and feel things that end up getting run over or clobbered as the transfer is made.
Thanks for that. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I can also add that the controlled vocabulary things, you'll need to think about those as well, because that adds an additional function where you can add additional, I mean, you can add new functionality that you did not have before. I mean, in my institution's case, the ability to have all the committee members, historical committee members, in a single list that the students then can, when they go to do a submission, once they start typing, it pulls up a list of the existing of names in the controlled vocabulary that match what they're typing in. So that way they can select an existing name, and you run the risk of that will prevent you as the admin from having to go in and correct those later.
Thank you, John. So Jill has a question that once a workflow exists and was used, and then it's not working or useful for the institution anymore, can you shut it off and then never use it again? With the understanding that you'd have to create a new workflow to replace it. What would the impact of that be, Frank?
I don't know. I mean, if you have a way to, I don't know if there's a way to block it. I would think there is. I'd have to go back and look to see if there's a way to prevent anyone from ever using that again. There's got to be some way to disable it.
Yeah, you'd have to go in and change a lot of configuration.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's involved. I haven't tried that myself.
Jill, I encourage you to break our sandbox.
Yes, please.
So Anne is asking, how important is the identifier field in a controlled vocabulary import? Is that just to use as needed, or does it need to correspond to in DSpace or something else?
The identifier, it has to be unique, and that's how things end up in the database. I don't think it doesn't necessarily need to be corresponding to DSpace, because this product could be theoretically not exported to DSpace, but exported somewhere else. That's a good question. I'd have to research that more.
Yeah, we haven't tested it with anything else other than DSpace and ProQuest, Anne.
Okay, my thought was, when we were kind of playing around with it, and the suggestion is to, to import one, export an existing one, and then, fill that form in. And on one that I exported, it had those DSpace identifiers that you can see, those strings of letters and numbers. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, if we're going to kind of go from scratch, does there need to be a value in that identifier field, or can it just be blank, or does that, that's kind of my question.
I can probably, I think it can be blank. I think in terms of my case, for the committee members that I've uploaded, and it still is blank. It does not have to have, I mean, the only thing that is required is the name. The name is the only field that you have to have anything in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I was like, I was hoping that was the case, but I wanted to check in with y'all. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Other questions, y'all? We have plenty of time. Okay, that was a long enough awkward silence. I've been advised to leave longer than feels comfortable in Zoom meetings, because sometimes it takes folks a little while to gather their questions. So So if there aren't any more questions today, remember, you can always reach out to us. You can reach out to the help desk, or you can reach out directly to me. You can reach out to anyone at TDL if you can't find me. And you can also use the user group list, and I encourage you to do so. I would like to start, and TDL would like to start in the coming year, having more frequent meetings of the larger Vireo user group to have more discussions about the future of Vireo and how to participate. And so you'll be hearing more about that soon. Leah has just also shared in the chat, thank you Leah so much, some important upcoming events. There's the State of Digital Preservation in Texas panel next Thursday, July 23rd. It's free. It's an hour and a half, and there'll be lots of time for discussion if you're interested in digital preservation. We've got our TDL awards ceremony on July 30th. We're going to try to make that super fun so we can celebrate our award winners who we were not able to celebrate in person at TCDL this year. And then we've also got the Texas ETD, TexEDA call for webinar proposals, especially pertinent to this group. They're calling for webinar proposals for their virtual event closing on August 1st. So that link is here as well. Misu is asking which institutions have completed migration so far. Great question. So as I mentioned in the beginning, there have been some shibboleth issues that Frank can talk a little bit more about that have held us up quite a bit. So our initial pilot institutions and then a handful of others who were scheduled for May and June migrations and early July have been delayed, although we are doing our best to get those instances up so that they're already available for Frank to work in and get that shibboleth going. So no one has a complete production Vireo4 yet. As soon as we get that shibboleth working, what we anticipate is that things will start rolling rapidly. And so, Frank, do you want to say anything more about what you're seeing and your expectations for the schedule for the rest of the summer?
Yeah, I think that covers it. We've got 2 institutions up where they can use shibboleth to sign in, but they're not seeing their usernames, and a few other things are not making it through. So, and there's been variations. We also did it with UTexas. We're seeing variations in the way that the shibboleth data is presenting on Vireo. So we're working through getting the shibboleth connection. Once an administrator who is going to have admin privileges at a given institution is fully connected through shibboleth and can create their organizational structure, then migration is pretty quick. Once that happens, it's a matter of running a script and transferring the data over. You know, it shouldn't take more than a half a day just to run, or maybe a day to run that script, depends on how much data there is. But yes, it's getting that shibboleth connection is the thing that's hanging us up. And, you know, we hadn't done any testing where all our testing has been through username, password, sign in, and we just recently trying to get the shibboleth connection made, and we're finding some things, there's some bugs in Vireo with that. So we got a few things to work through. Once those things are worked through, then things should really start rolling. You know, we got a couple institutions stacked up, ready to go once we make that connection.
Yep. Thanks, Frank. Frank's going to have shibboleth nightmares, hopefully not for too long after this, but
will have.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, Frank. So yeah, yeah.
So something Frank said made me think of, so he mentioned once we have the organizational structure set up, then they can start the migration. So if we're thinking of using so some people are just going to keep things exactly the way they are. The only thing that will go in there is ETDs, but other institutions are going to want to take advantage of the ability to set up different workflows for different entities on campus. So does that second piece need to be fleshed out, or does it just need to be that you are going to go that road and you've got the graduate school set up, but do you have to have everything else set up, or can the rest of it be set up later? Because there's really nothing there to be migrated.
If you have no organizational structure that you want your old data represented in, then that's straightforward. I'm going to take that old structure, represent it in Vireo4, and then migrate all the Vireo3 data over to Vireo4. It's historical data. I mean, it's, you know,
Right.
unless you get something in progress, but if you had it under a particular institution before, you'll probably have it under that same institution going forward. And your new structures, that can happen after the fact. If you're going to have other organizational structures and workflows, that's obviously going to happen for new Vireo, and that can happen post-migration.
Okay, thanks. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to be sure.
Any other questions, folks? Okay, going. I'm going to close this down if there aren't any more questions or conversation today. I hope that some of you are excited about some of the new features that we've been waiting a long time for, and that you'll find them useful. We're here for you at TDL and the steering committee as well. So if you have questions as you go, we're here to work with you. Thanks again for your patience as we work through these final issues in the migrations, but we are determined, or I should say Frank is determined to get us through this together. So thank you all so much for your patience and for working with us, and also for giving us those time spans when we've asked you to. We do have one just under the wire question from Nisu. She's asking, local configuration needed for Vireo4 is mainly to set up organizations, since settings will be migrated from Vireo3 to 4. Is that right?
I do a mapping from Vireo3's organizations and programs departments and whatnot into a mapping for Vireo4. It may not be what you're expecting going forward, so you may need to add some things. That's why there's 6 different stages to the migration, and that first one is setting up the organization. I do a migration, and I pause then just to let you say, okay, yes, this is the organization we want, or no, we want to map something a little differently. Most cases, I expect people will not want to do any changes. But if, you know, it gives you a chance to say, well, you know, we changed this around a little bit, so.
And then other than that, I'd say some of the stuff that Billy walked us through, some of the filters and the controlled vocabularies, or other things that you might want to take advantage of. Okay. Anybody else under the wire? I'm going to give you back some more of your Friday afternoon. Again, I'm so grateful for so many of you for coming. I hope this was useful for you. We've recorded it. We'll share the recording and the slides that are just link full. And so reach out to us if you have any questions as we go. Thanks again to my steering committee folks who've joined me on this call today and helped answer some of these questions. And thank you, Frank, for talking about some of the development related questions. All of y'all take care, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.